Hello, everyone. This is George Homer with LawRoom and CampusClarity. I want to thank you for joining our webinar today on how to address Campus SaVE Act and Title IX best practices from a training perspective for 2016. Again, I'm George Homer. I'm an account executive here at LawRoom and CampusClarity. Many of you on the call may know me. I work with over 250 campuses throughout the U.S. So we have many clients as well as non-clients on the phone today. So excited to share with you the knowledge that we've seen over the last several years as far as best practices on a wide range of Campus SaVE Act and Title IX training pieces. And so this is going to be about a 30-minute webinar today. I do appreciate everyone taking time out of their busy day to come and join us for this. And so I am recording this as well, so if there are, we're going to send recordings to everyone after this, but as we go through this, if there's questions, please feel free to go ahead and put those in the question box and we can answer at a pause here to actually address any questions or concerns. And so, so for our agenda today, we're going to walk through really 4 key areas. So we're going to talk about how to increase participation and completion rates to 90 plus percentage points. And so we surveyed everyone at the beginning of this, and we found that that many folks were not hitting the participation rates that they'd like to. So we're going to talk about some best practices on how to achieve a higher rate. We're also going to talk about training for adult learners and graduate students, and so we know this is a really unique audience as far as not being your traditional first-time student from a 18 to 22-year-old demographic, and so we want to talk about adult learners and grad students and how we can help from a training perspective. We'll also talk about integrating your Campus SaVE Act training with your climate survey. And so, so we know there's really a multitude of steps that we need to take to really change behavior, to change culture on campus. And so training, climate surveys, on-campus campaigns are all things that we'll talk about, and having really the technology and tools to help achieve that behavior change. We'll also talk about complying with changing state requirements within the Campus SaVE Act training. So we know that federal and state law requirements are a moving target, and so having the resources in place and the expertise to help make sure that any material that you're putting out is going to be compliant with these requirements. We'll talk about CampusClarity by the numbers. And so we'll talk a little bit about CampusClarity and what we've been able to accomplish over the last several years. And then I've got optional product demo on here. So if we have time and it's appropriate, I know we have, as I said, many clients on the phone who on the webinar today who know our products well. And so we will maybe spend a few minutes just on some of the CampusClarity product information, but just that's if we have enough time. And so, so I'm going to start this off with our first point here. So how to increase participation and completion rates. And so, so we know working with over 600 campuses that in many cases participation for sexual assault prevention, substance abuse prevention training can be a real challenge. And so when we pulled out this survey here in the beginning, we found that many folks who responded to their survey, many of you didn't receive the completion rates that you'd like to, or that other campuses have achieved. So I'm going to spend a few minutes discussing best practices for completion and adoption. And so just to use Ball State as an example, so Ball State put out this article in April 2015, which showed that they received an 87% completion rate with just automated email reminders. And so, so I know there's hundreds of campuses on this call today, and I work with many. And so when we talk to campuses that get low completion rates from other providers or other solutions that they've used, it's really not just a vanity metric or a compliance metric, but it's a missed opportunity to reach students. And so, so let's talk about how we can really improve course completions. And so, so we talk about campus level participation. So there's a wide range of options that fall under this umbrella. And so so here at CampusClarity, we developed a program called Talk About It, which has posters, which you're seeing here a sample of. There's PowerPoint presentations, there's assessments, there's facilitator-led discussion guides, there's article prints, but you can also go into really having other types of solutions, whether it's a banner on the website. So when I think about this, and we had this annual summit here the day before NASPA, and so hearing from USF, hearing from Yale, talking to Seton Hall, talking to a lot of the folks that are clients of ours, we really learned that there's a wide range of ground game, so to speak, opportunities that you can address. So whether it's a banner on your website, whether it's small groups, whether it's handouts. So there's really a wide range of resources that, from a campus level perspective, folks can really use to reinforce the program. I spoke with one of my previous clients, and they had mentioned that, and it was actually Rhode Island School of Design, and so at the end of the year they throw this really awesome celebration for students, and so one of the prices to admission, so to speak, was to actually finish the Think About It course, and then they would go to this awesome course, and they received a tremendous completion rate by providing that. And so really critical areas to talk about and think about as we look at having this campus level promotion. We also talk about incentives and disincentives, and so we see from working with USF and from working with a number of other campuses, giveaways, raffles, gift cards, first pick of housing. So those are really, there's a wide range of incentives that make it fun and make it giving out shirts. I mean, really, it's endless with the creativity that you can come up with to really have a great incentive program to your training and other on-campus campaigns. And so just really thinking through what is it that makes sense from incentivizing people to take this. And as I'd mentioned from the Ball State article, I mean, we receive a great completion rate without having to incentive and disincentivize folks, but knowing that there's ways to get creative and really have incentives and disincentives is critical. And looking at disincentives, registration holds, fines. I mean, I have a number of clients that use different disincentives, and it's effective. And so just picking what's right for your campus and really thinking it through. I know working with you know, several campuses, they do actually put registration holds, and that is extremely effective. So just really depends on your specific needs and objectives. And then we talk about tools and technology, and so how do we help the campuses from a training perspective on having technology? And so whether you're using something internally or using another solution, or you're using CampusClarity, having automated email reminders, having the tools, the tracking and reporting tools in place to make sure that that there are course assignments that are going out effectively, that students are getting those, that you're setting up automated email reminders, that you're looking at tracking and reporting metrics, that you're looking at behavioral reports. So we talk about looking at completions and making sure that that your technology is in alignment with your program. And so wide range of things that you can do, both from the administrative side and then going further into maybe manual email reminders coming from the provost or the vice provost. And so that's where we really get into getting creative. And so I had the pleasure of hearing David Lindsay at Yale talk about how our program was utilized and how it was rolled out, and hearing about 30% less ambulance trips to the hospital based on after our program was implemented, using you know, super creative ways, whether it's a small campus calling people individually, whether it's a letter coming from or an email coming from the provost or the vice provost. So just really getting creative and knowing your audience and knowing what ways you can use to further the message and get that last 10%, because we see 90% is definitely a great percentage, but getting that other 10% is hard. And so getting creative and using different methods to really grab that last 10% is critical and really needs some thought. And then we talk about training for adult learners and grad students. And so this is a really interesting topic that we come across almost daily here. And so when we started early on, we made the mistake of distributing out undergrad training to adult learners, to continuing students, and when I say undergrad, first time 18 to 22-year-old training, and giving that to older students, giving that to grad students. And so it really didn't go well. And so coming back, and we recognize that as a mistake. And so so we quickly corrected that and focus group tested our graduate program with Harvard Law, with Stanford. And so addressing an audience that is completely unique and different than a first-time student, it's really critical that you have a program, whether it's another solution, whether it's internally built, whether it's a third party, that takes that into account, because it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. And so we really want to make sure that that students are getting age-appropriate material. It is reflective of their learning style, their age, their situation, their experience. So there's just quite a bit to really go in and reinforce. And so we know that many campuses focus solely on incoming students and exclude a lot of these continuing and grad students. And so the Campus SaVE Act really applies to all students as a primary prevention program, and then having this annual ongoing program every year. And so as I mentioned, whether you're building it yourself, whether you're using a solution, getting this right is really critical to providing an effective experience to all audience members. And so we get into more adult learner grad program. It focuses more on the professional life. It gets into domestic violence. It gets into dating violence. It gets into stalking and consent, all state-specific. Gets into harassment in the workplace. So less of a party smart type approach, and more of a professional approach, and being an adult and dealing with issues that are different than what an 18-year-old is going to be addressing. And then we look at interactions that deal with biological responses to an assault. So we have this situation here where it's interactive. You go in and you select different biological markers that affect a victim of sexual assault. And in this case, we have tonic immobility or rape-induced paralysis. So very interactive way to reinforce the material. And then I mentioned domestic violence and dating violence. And so having programming that touches on all of the Campus SaVE Act requirements, the consent, the domestic violence, the dating violence, the stalking, the sexual assault, the victim protection orders. And so putting that all into your adult learner, your grad course is critical. And having a time length that's reasonable as well. So 45 minutes, 40 minutes is what we see that our med students, our law students, our grad students, our continuing students all feel comfortable with. And then we talk about integrating your Campus SaVE Act training program with your climate survey. And so this is really a critical area. And so most institutions that we talk to, they're really under scrutiny to affect culture change and not just check the box. And so really the best way to look at efficacy is to do a comparative analysis with primary programs, with follow-ups, with annual refresher training, and then an annual climate survey. And so many of you in our survey before the webinar here had indicated that you've done or are planning to do a climate survey. And so at CampusClarity, we really see this as an interlinked component. And so we know that you want to see gaps where there is in your intervention programs. We want to see those so that we can address new programs and continue to innovate and iterate our programs and fill these gaps with content and with solutions that can really make a difference. And so climate surveys on our side can be administrated in a variety of ways. And so I'm going to spend a few minutes to talk about that. But I think the key point here on climate surveys and training is that having the climate survey integrated in with your tool for training is critical. It just makes sense, and it really should be in the same system so you have all the data easily and accessible. And so on that note, as I'm looking at the Climate Survey Builder, I am going to send a link in Chatter on our webinar here, so you'll be able to actually click on a link and go in and access the climate survey. But it is a climate survey builder, and so as I'm pulling up this link right now, and so I'm going to send this off. You're going to be able to go in, and so our climate tool is actually a builder, survey builder, and so you'll get to see in this video. It's actually about 60 seconds, so it's really really quick, really easy. So I'm going to send this out to the entire audience right now. And so this is a really great climate survey overview, but what we've developed here from a climate survey perspective is it's a climate survey tool that allows you to use sample questions that we've developed in our White House survey sample, and also build your own questions into the survey. So you can modify the survey, you can create intro messaging that's customized to your campus, you can create questions that are specific to your campus, you can create IRB consent, you can create the outro messaging, and so all very specific to your campus. And so you'll be able to take a look at that promo video. You'll see quite a bit of information on how the climate survey tool is developed and deployed. And so essentially what CampusClarity has here from a survey perspective is it's integrated right into the toolbox. And so as we look at the manage users, reports, notifications, you'll see the last item is survey. So you essentially click on the survey, develop your survey, launch your survey out to your students or faculty, staff, and then collect the data and analyze it. It's all anonymous. You can cross-tabulate. You can filter by answers. You can essentially look at all of the different anonymized responses and pull the data out straight out of our system into a spreadsheet or into some other CSV file. And so really makes things easy, closes the loop on learning about the temperature on your campus, on what's going on with sexual assault prevalence, and so just continues to reinforce that these programs are working, these programs are not working, or we need to improve in these areas. And so having one solution has really, from our experience, we've seen great success in combining those resources. And so what we can see here is more data, analytics. You can look at participations. You can look at drop-off rates. You can brand the survey to your institution with your logo, with your campus photos. There you can view it on a mobile device. So there's really just a wide range of important metrics that you can view with your survey, but also having the survey that's professional, that's from a third party, is really helpful to show students that, hey, we're serious about this. We didn't just throw out a Google Doc or an Excel spreadsheet, and so we want to make sure that students are receptive to answering the questions, that they do feel comfortable, and really don't fear that the administration can see this. We get into sample size control. There's persistent trigger warnings on the climate surveys, and so really having the ability to address surveys that are from a sexual assault prevalence standpoint, not just a random survey on anything, because there's definitely considerations to take in mind, but integrating that in with your training is a critical area to ensure that you're really covering all your bases and finding out what's going on, and then addressing those concerns with interventions that are relevant. And so so we looked at more of the analytics, more of the participation, the drop-off rates, the responses, exited via trigger warning. So if someone sees a question that's continuously, there's exits via that trigger warning, that's a question you may want to take a look at. And then lastly, complying with the changing state requirements within your Campus SaVE Act training program. And so as I'd mentioned in the intro, state law, federal law requirements are moving target, and so we've seen a number of changes over the last several years in higher education, and so we know that law changes need to be updated. And so if you have your general counsel monitoring the laws, then you're really taking steps to address this. but really knowing how those laws are integrated into your training with context is critical. And so is it a link to the ATIXA website? Is it a link to statutes that no one's going to read? Those are all critical considerations. And then when those laws do change, how are those addressed? How are those updated? Is it internal resources that are already stretched thin? Is it not updating it, which really isn't a good idea, and definitely is not something that we would recommend. And so LawRoom CampusClarity, we have about 12 lawyers on staff here to monitor laws and update the laws as courses change with context as well. And so we know this is a really Herculean task that requires knowledge on how those laws affect the course on every single page. And so when we're developing state-specific courses, which under the SaVE Act, every course has to be state-specific, which I know everyone on this call knows, but actually putting in the nuances, putting it in plain English so an 18-year-old or a 30-year-old or a 50-year-old who has no legal background can really understand how those laws apply to them, what's their responsibilities, what are their requirements, whether it's an employee or a student, having that information so that they make the right decisions and they know what the law requires of them, because the law changes, and consent, sexual assault, dating violence, domestic violence, stalking, all those laws are different from state to state. And so making sure that any material that you're putting out, whether it's internal, whether it's from another source, that you have the information that's updated and that's relevant. And so we saw in California, yes means yes. There's an affirmative consent law. We saw in New York, enough is enough. There were climate survey requirements. There were annual training requirements. So a wide range of requirements out of New York. And then in Illinois, we had a requirement from a training perspective. So all employees have to receive some sort of training. And so really important to have those state laws and to be able to make those changes as they occur is critical. And so our team of attorneys works hard to make sure that when laws change, and unfortunately they do often, the courses are up to date and there's context on every page to address those state law requirements. And so just a little bit of information about CampusClarity from by the numbers, so to speak, so who we are as a company. And as I'd mentioned, there are many customers on this call already that use CampusClarity, many who are not. So just to give you folks a little bit of background on who we are as a company, LawRoom CampusClarity, we were founded over 20 years ago, and so we were founded by attorneys. We have tens of thousands of organizations that have trusted us for behavioral change training, to change behavior, to change culture, to comply with federal and state regulations. And so just a little context on what we accomplished last year. So we had 1.5 million employees and students train with us at over 1,500 organizations. We'll train over 2 million employees and students this year. We're up to almost 600 colleges and universities that rely and trust us for Title IX and Campus SaVE Act training. And so some of the most well-known and well-respected institutions in the country, from Yale, Harvard, NYU, Columbia on the East Coast, USC, Stanford, the whole University of California system here on the West Coast, but we also have Florida State, Emory University, George Washington University, some of the largest systems, Texas State, POSHI, Washington State Board of Community and Technical Colleges, and a number of community colleges with our adult learner course have found our programs to be helpful. And so we have a couple minutes here. I'd like to open up the floor for any questions. And so I see that we have a couple here, so I'm going to answer those. And so we have a question here: can we set up our reminder, or is this automatic? And so you can set up automated email reminders. You can also set up manual email reminders that go out. So the next question was the Ball State article. Was that 87% completion for all students or new students? And so I believe it was just new students, but I'm not 100% sure. And so definitely we can address that and send that off. I can send you the article and you can actually take a look. Is the survey free for us to use? And so our climate survey platform, there is a cost, and we can definitely talk about that if there are questions. I'll reach out and we can address that. And then we have another question: are these components that are already in the system, or are you asking us to add this? And so these are best practices on how to achieve goals as far as higher participation using climate surveys to really integrate in. And so so any other questions that I didn't respond to, I'm happy to send off and answer those individually. Also, if there are questions, if there are concerns, if folks want to see an in-depth demo of this, I'm actually going to go to a screen here that has my contact information. So you can either put demo or one-on-one in the box, or here's my contact, George Homer, 925-927-2251. You can give me a call. You can email me at g.homer@lawroom.com, and we can go through a more in-depth product demo. We can talk about options for campuses. We can talk about pricing. We can talk about course access. And so really appreciate everyone. It looks like we've got about 30 seconds left, but I really appreciate everyone's time today to come out and view this. And I will answer every question individually that we did not answer. Also happy to give course assignments, talk through options on your strategy, talk about pricing. Just any questions you have, feel free to reach out to me and we can definitely go through that. Thank you, everyone, and we will be sending this out in a recording as well. Have a great day.